Hello, everyone, and welcome to this afternoon's webinar on implementing the ROMA cycle in the Next Generation Performance Management Framework. I'm Jarl Crocker, Director of Training and Technical Assistance here at the Community Action Partnership, and I'm joined this afternoon by Courtney Kohler, our Senior Associate, and a woman who needs no introduction, Barbara Mooney, Director of the Association for Nationally Certified ROMA Trainers. We're here this afternoon to talk about a number of resources that we've developed in collaboration by the national partners, and to talk about how you can use them in your local agencies. Specifically, what we've developed is a series of webinars and supporting facilitators guides that help agencies fully implement the ROMA cycle and also connect that ROMA framework to the broader CSDG performance management framework. I'll talk a little bit about the big picture this afternoon, how these resources connect to what's going on in the network on those issues. And then Barbara and Courtney will talk in more detail about what each of these resources are and how you can use them at your local agency. So just to show you what we have for you, the slide on the screen walks you through a 5-video series. We have completed the first 4 of those videos, and those are currently available on the partnership's website. They are Creating a Local Theory of Change, Understanding Community-Level Work, Setting the Stage for Data Collection, and Introduction to Data Analysis. We also have a 5th video that will come out sometime in the new fiscal year on implementing the full ROMA cycle. These are companion pieces to 3 facilitators guides. Those guides will be available on the partnership's website by next Friday, and they're meant to go together with the video series to help an agency do a workshop in each of these areas. Now, Barbara and Courtney are going to talk in more detail about each of the series and how you can use them at your agency. But these are designed so that they can be used all together, or an agency can use them one by one or mix and match between the different videos and facilitators guides depending on what their needs are. So I want to talk a little bit about what we're hoping that you'll get out of working with these materials, and then I'll turn it over to Barbara and Courtney to talk in more detail about what these workshops would look like and about what topics they would cover. So taken together, our 5-video series and facilitators guides are meant to help agencies be able to recall and describe the basic elements of the results-oriented management and accountability, or ROMA, principles and practices. And I think at this point most agencies have a ROMA trainer on staff, but that doesn't necessarily mean the agency as a whole is familiar with those ROMA principles and practices. So one of the overall big picture objectives of these resources is to provide your ROMA trainer or other senior trainers with a background in ROMA with the resources to help make sure that your agency as a whole is familiar with that ROMA framework. And so there are a number of other specific goals that thread through each of those videos and accompanying facilitators guides that help explain the new focus on ROMA for the next generation. So one of those learning objectives is to make sure that agencies can describe the role of theory of change describe the role of a theory of change throughout the ROMA cycle. So you've probably heard of our national theory of change, but we're also encouraging agencies to think about developing their own local theory of change that talks about the work they do and what they hope to accomplish through their programs and services, and why they think those programs and services are going to produce the outcomes they hope that they produce. And so the guide and the webinar are meant to help agencies develop their own theory of change, and they're supported by some additional resources. There's a guide already available by NASCAP, but we're hoping collectively that these will help agencies fully develop their own local theory of change. Another learning objective is to help agencies identify key elements of community-level work. So one of the other video series and associated facilitators guide helps agencies think through what is community work, what are different examples of community level work, and how can agencies report on community level work if they choose to engage in it. Another learning objective is to help agencies describe the interrelationships between family, agency, and community level changes. And that's one of the big picture objectives of ROMA, is to make sure that agencies are looking at all three of those factors as they plan their programs and services. And then finally, we have another couple of learning objectives, which are to help agencies identify data collection processes and procedures that are needed for data analysis, explain the role of that data analysis and the role it plays in the ROMA cycle, and identify key data analysis techniques and how analysis can be used for improvement. So we have two videos, one on data collection, one on data analysis, and those are supported by one facilitator's guide that covers both of those topics. So again, you can use those as a single workshop. You can break them out into two different sections, but we know that agencies at the top of their T&TA needs have asked for more resources to help them around issues of data collection and data analysis. So we really hope that these resources will be helpful in building agency capacity around those issues. And then finally, one of the last big picture learning objectives is to discuss how all the elements of the performance management framework work together. So even though the focus of these videos and the facilitators' guides are on helping agencies fully implement the ROMA framework, they're also connected to the new annual report, the organizational standards, and that overall CSBG performance management framework. They are all of a piece. And I really want to stress that this has been a collaborative effort led by Answered, but we've worked, and NASCAST has worked closely with Barbara and Answered on this project. And so we're really hoping that it brings a lot of these national changes home to agencies, and that we can really, you'll use these resources to build your capacity to make sure that you're fully implementing those ROMA principles and practices. So finally, the overall purpose and use. Obviously, these resources incorporate ROMA and that ROMA framework throughout all of the videos and facilitators' guides. We're also hoping the agencies use them to explore focus areas for ROMA next generation. So, for example, the component that looks at doing community level work. We hope agencies will use that as a support for the are considering doing those community-level initiatives. These resources also demonstrate how all the elements of the performance management framework fit together. Like I said, we really hope you see that this is all of a piece, that they incorporate ROMA principles and practices, but they're also meant to help agencies with the annual report, with ROMA Next Generation, touching on issues like data collection and data analysis, developing a local theory of change. So this is really a big picture package of resources. And finally, these resources are adaptable to the needs of the agency. Like I said, you could do a whole series where you walk through each of the workshops with the videos and the facilitators' guides. You can mix and match, or you can just do one as a standalone training. It's entirely up to the agency, but these are meant to be flexible and adaptable. So with that said, I want to turn it over now to Courtney and Barbara to talk in more detail about the contents of these resources and how we hope agencies use them. So Courtney and Barbara, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you, Jarl. And this is Courtney Kohler with the Community Action Partnership. And the first segment I'm going to talk to you about today is creating a local theory of change. Now, you noticed in the graphic of the 5 pieces of this training series that this one was the first one listed. But again, like Jarl mentioned also, is that they don't necessarily have to be done in any particular order. But this one could be a good first choice for this training series if your agency sees that that's the way they want to go. So the pieces of this training segment on local theory of change, first of all, there's a recorded webinar, and this is really an introductory piece. It just goes over the concepts and the purpose, the benefits of creating a local theory of change. So it's really an introduction. It's about 29 minutes. So this one is going to be good to use in staff meetings, part of maybe lunch and learns or in a board meeting. Then the other piece of this training segment is a PowerPoint for an in-person workshop. and that is accompanied by a facilitator guide, and we're going to show you kind of what that looks like here in a moment. Then there's also some supplementary materials in there that really complement the workshop. So NASCAP's Guide to Creating a Local Theory of Change is really instrumental within this segment of the ROMA Next Generation Training Series. And then there's also an organizational culture assessment to kind of see where the agency is at in certain areas and looking at the culture of the organization and how that really feeds into the local theory of change. Then on the, as far as the learning objectives go, both the video series for this piece as well as the workshop, participants will really be able to define the theory of change and understand what it is, identify the key elements of the national community action theory of change. They'll be able to recognize the assumptions about the causes and conditions of poverty, which are then communicated through agency mission statements. So it really takes a look at the mission of your agency. Also, it digs into the assumptions and helps agencies recognize the assumptions about how to address poverty, which are communicated in the services and strategies that the agency chooses. Also, it describes the benefits of creating a local theory of change and also the steps to creating a local theory of change. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pull up one of the workshop facilitation guides. Now, as Jarl said, the videos are all available now on our website, and we're going to show you where those are available to you here later on in the webinar. But these facilitator guides, as well as the workshop PowerPoints, are going to be available next week, so the first week of November. And this is kind of what they look like. It's the cover page. And I'm going to pull it up to show you what this looks like as far as the organization of it. So you see the cover here. They're all kind of branded the same so that you can easily identify them. And then as we open it up and go to the table of contents, we see that each of these facilitator guides have kind of an introduction to the ROMA Next Generation Training Series. Goes over the learning objectives for the series. So that part is the same in each of the facilitation guides. Then it goes into the specific learning objectives and description for the training module that you're currently looking at. Then it goes through an overview as well as a module outline. So it goes more into the different pieces that are included, as well as how to really facilitate and prepare for the workshop. And then there are the slides and the notes for the facilitator. So all right there for you to access. So again, here is the introduction, overall learning objectives of the training series. Then it gets more into the specific training module and the learning objectives. And then also the video, notice that this can be linked through this facilitation guide. So really you can take the facilitation guide and almost everything you need for this piece of the training series is all accessible within the facilitation guide. So you can link the video through there. Then on this next page, you'll see a little bit about the workshop, the goal and the length of it, how it can be adapted, also the trainer requirements. Again, this can be facilitated by a nationally certified ROMA trainer, implementer, or any other facilitator that has a good understanding of ROMA. Then all of your materials and handouts that are needed are going to be listed here, and they're all linked through here, so you can easily access them, print them off for your participants. There's also a section within the Dropbox where all these resources are housed that has the additional materials. So there's actually a sign-in sheet in there. There is a workshop evaluation form, as well as some just basic trainer tips for preparing for your workshop. So definitely go through and access that. Then there's some information about your room setup, how many people. So this really kind of sets you up for what you need. Then next, you see that there's a module outline included in here, and it goes through basically each portion of the workshop, the content, the delivery method, whether you're doing small groups, pairing up, or if it's facilitator-led, the time for each piece, what slides correspond to those pieces, and then all of the materials that you'll need for each section. And then after that, you'll see in the facilitator guides, there are slides and the notes to the facilitators. So this goes through and you'll see that there are notes included in here. And of course, as a facilitator, you can add your own as well. But there are activities throughout these workshops and different questions to pose to your participants. And so all of that is included throughout the slides and notes. There's also then, of course, the PowerPoint that will accompany this that you can use to actually deliver to your audience. All right. So now that we've taken a look at that facilitator guide, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Barbara Mooney, and she'll start talking about our segments on data collection and analysis.
Thanks, Courtney. I'm glad to have the opportunity to talk about the data collection webinars. The first one is setting the stage for data collection. As it says here, it's 27 minutes. And participants will look at their data collection systems, their own systems, and will really understand how data collection is the foundation for everything else that we do with data. If you don't have good data collected, then the analysis of the data is flawed, and any decisions that are made based on that data is flawed. So the next thing is that data is found throughout the ROMA cycle, and so in this webinar we'll highlight that information as well. Okay, and then the second webinar about data is the introduction to the analysis and use of data. And as you see, this one's about 22 minutes. And in this one, we're really going to focus on some essential elements of data to allow you to understand the difference between raw data and then the information that you get from analyzing your data, and how you turn that information into knowledge to help you to make decisions for your agency. The data collection process, the data analysis process is quite complex, and we know we've heard agency representatives saying we don't have anyone on our staff that can do data analysis. It's a very complicated process. And what we try to do in this webinar is to provide you with some simple analysis tools and let you think about how important it is to do things like counting and comparing and looking at the trends that you see in your data, and how that information can really help you improve your agency capacity and your results. Both of these, here's a picture here, both of these webinars having to do with data are collected together into a workshop that we're calling Digging Deeper into Data Practices at Your Agency. The workshop that goes with the two sections is combined together, and in this workshop, the participants are going to be using their own data. They'll look at their data collection practices, they'll understand their data storage processes, they'll consider what might be needed for reporting and what's needed for management. We know that data is useful on both management and accountability levels. And then they'll have an opportunity to identify some steps to improve their data collection, analysis, and use as part of the workshop. This shows the relationship between the topic, the two recorded webinars, and that one workshop. Now, as Courtney mentioned, you have total flexibility in how you do these workshops. Once you look at them, you may decide to have a 2-hour workshop. That's just a small chunk of the workshop materials. You may decide to do a day, or you may have other ways of looking at the workshop. We suggest that the recorded webinars are viewed by the participants a week or two before the workshop session is set. The last topic for today's discussion is this understanding community level work. We have a recorded overview of community level work, and then a short example of a homeless reduction program that helps you think through the pieces of identifying community level work. And this will then also have a workshop with a facilitator guide. In the workshop, there will be some connections with the NASCASP learning or presentations that have to do with the annual report in Module 3, so that people become familiar with the initiative status form and the other pieces of the reporting as it has to do with community level work. Even though we say all of these can be done in any order, it's important that before you start to think about community level work, that the agency, the participants in the workshop have done some thinking about the agency's theory of change. Not necessarily that the theory of change, local theory of change workshop is a prerequisite, but having the process of identifying the need for the agency's involvement in community level work will happen during the theory of change workshop. And so that one might be easy to do before this one. The outcomes of the learning objectives for the workshop will be the definition of community needs, identifying their own data and factors that support and restrict the community work, and then recognizing community outcomes and strategies, and knowing how to document those things at the community level, both amongst your partners and also using the new annual report. And I'm going to turn it back over to Courtney for the next section.
All right, thanks, Barbara. So the last piece that we talked about on that beginning slide, you saw that we have the 5 different pieces of this training series, and the first 4 are being released now. And then this 5th piece, like Darrell said, will be released in 2018. And so this one really focuses on implementing the full ROMA cycle, and it's kind of that capstone piece to the training series. So what it will include, it'll have a recorded webinar, which will be very brief, about a 10-minute overview. And then within that as well, there'll be a resource guide of what is already out there that fits into the parts of the ROMA cycle, so that you can easily access guides and technical assistance pieces, and different publications and PowerPoint presentations that go with the assessment, the planning process, implementation, achievement of results, and evaluation. Then there'll be trainings that are going to be considered beyond the basics, so beyond the basics in the community needs assessment, and so on. So just kind of going deeper into the topic and helping agencies to go past just doing a basic needs assessment to really doing a great comprehensive needs assessment that meets things like the organizational standards and really fits into the connections within the ROMA cycle. So be looking for this in the next year to come out to really complete this training series for you. And then as far as access, so probably what everyone is wondering at this point. So first of all, of course, this is free for your use. So it can be done by, again, a trainer, implementer, or another facilitator with knowledge of ROMA. So that's really the only requirement with this, is that you have knowledge of ROMA to be able to facilitate it. Also, where you're going to be able to access this, it's going to be on the partnership website under Tools and Resources. So that's on the communityactionpartnership.com. And then if you go to Tools and Resources on that, so here's a picture of our website. When you go to it, there'll be a drop-down menu, and you will see ROMA, and it'll be on the top of the ROMA page. So actually, as you close this webinar today, it should direct you straight to the page where they're located, so you can go ahead and start taking a look at the videos. And there are also PDFs of the slides on there as well, so that you can download those and print them out. It will direct you to our Dropbox to be able to access these. And so if anybody does have any problems with that or has difficulty accessing, please let us know, and we'll make sure that we create another way for you to access it as well. Another side note is that fairly soon we're going to be having a learning management system platform out there called Moodle. And then at that point, whenever we start creating courses in there, that we will have these organized around courses within that Moodle site for you all to access with the resources, videos, and workshop portions. All right, so with that, we'll go ahead and take a look and see if there has been any questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to type those into the chat box now and send those to the host or the panelists, and we can take a look, but we'll take a quick pause for questions. But this is our contact information. If anyone has any questions about anything we talked about today, or as you start to view the video modules, please let us know if you have questions or comments. We'd love to hear from you. And I'll take a quick look to see if there's been any questions.
I think we'll probably start getting questions once people have an opportunity to view the material and start working with it. And just know that we're available to answer questions as we go forward with this rollout because we think these are the key topic areas for the transition to the new performance management framework, and we want to provide you with whatever assistance you need.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us today, and just echo what Barbara said, let us know if you need anything or have any questions. So whenever you exit this, you should be directed to our website and you can start taking a look at these materials. So thank you all and have a great day.